Hello and welcome to lesson 20 of our second step curriculum. Today we are going to be tackling the subject of how to deal with gossip. Gossip is a word that we're probably all at least familiar with. So I want you to think about what is my experience with gossip so far, whether I have participated in spreading gossip, whether I've heard about it before, whether I've heard people talk about other people, whatever the case may be. I want you to just think about what your experience is so that when you're observing and watching through this video, you'll have a little bit more understanding of what did I learn and what can I use moving forward. So I'm excited about this lesson today because you're almost sixth graders. In middle school can be a really exciting time of your life. I had a great experience when I was in middle school because I was able to find friends and create genuine friendships. And I tried my best to avoid a lot of that gossip, that drama we talk about. It can be really hard to avoid it or to even stand up against it, but it made my experience a positive one. So I'm hoping that you can just think about it a little bit, because I know once you're in middle school, it can be kind of hard to get away from all of that. So to start us off, we're going to review our problem solving, the step method towards the problem solving. So the poster's behind me. You've seen this before in the videos I've posted previously, and today we are going to be watching our intro video. And I want you to think about, how does this relate to gossip? That seems like, well, I just don't agree with gossip, so I'll just stay away from people who are doing that, or I'll try to ignore it. So as you're watching the video, I want you to think about, how does this relate to the topic of gossip, and what does this mean for me as I'm trying to navigate through that, whether I'm in school or with my friends, whatever the case may be. So as you're watching the video, you're going to be listening for attention for the term best solution. Last time I gave you something to listen for. This week you are going to be watching and listening for the term, or for the words, best solution. And then we will check in to see how well you are able to listen with attention when we're done. So pulling this up here. Last reminder, the phrase is best solution.
Here's a great way to remember. Keep it strong in your head, yeah. After the storm of strong emotions, here's the way to solve the problem, yeah. I said step. I just remember to step. Oh, giant. You say the problem out loud now. Nothing solutions that may work on how. Explore consequences, what would happen if. Now pick the best solution and make your plan, yeah. You got to step up to be cool, yeah. S-T-E-P. Give your power now. After the storm of strong emotion, S-T-E-P. Solve the problem now. Now listen to me, all you good people. There's nothing wrong with strong emotion, but after you calm it down, you still got a problem, see? Now you gotta fix it, and you can. Oh, you step up. Let me show ya. Say you're in line and a kid come cut in front of ya. Whoa, that make you mad, brothers and sisters. So feel it and calm it and take another look, yeah. Whoa, let me show you now. You see the problem out loud now. You both want to be first in line. no blame. Now think solutions that may work and how. Now these gotta be safe and respectful, no pushing, no shoving. See, explore consequences, what would happen if? How will other people feel? How will you feel? Will it work? Now pick the best solution and make your plan, yeah. Choose it and act on it. You got to step up to be cool, yeah. S-T-E-P. Give your power now after the storm of strong emotion. S-T-E-P. Solve the problem now. You say the problem out loud now. Now think solutions that may work on how. Explore consequences, what would happen if. Now pick the best solution and make your plan, yeah. You got to step. I just remember to step. Oh, child, say you wanna step. You got to step. Oh yeah, step.
All right, how well did you do listening with attention? You should have been listening for the phrase best solution. On the count of 3, I'm going to show you the number of times that came up. In 1, 2, 3. 3 times in that. So if you got that correct, give yourselves a pat on the back for doing well, listening with attention. So today we're going to be talking about gossip. There was an activity that we were going to do in class that I'm kind of bummed we're not going to be able to do. But it had to do with passing around notes that were talking about a specific person in class or just like your neighbor. And the whole idea is that gossip is not just me telling you. It's you latching onto that and then telling somebody else. And then them telling somebody else and somebody else and somebody else and somebody else. And it kind of makes me think of the game Telephone, where the person at the beginning has a phrase that they say to their neighbor listens and passes it on. So at the end, everybody's heard that phrase. Similar to gossip. It's not necessarily linear in that you're passing just one person to one person to one person, but it's more of like a web. You've ever seen a spider web, how multiple strands and parts of the spider web are connected to more parts, and it's all in one web. It's kind of what I think about when I think of gossip. It may start with one strand. One person either comes up with the idea, sees it, hears it, whatever the case may be, whether it's true or not true, or even partially true. And then they spread it to someone else, and then that person spreads it. But the original person is continuing that web and that chain. And ultimately, gossip is, it can be really, really harmful to people because typically it's about somebody. So, for example, let's say I saw somebody playing in the dirt at recess. Okay, whatever, that's awesome, good for them. And if I wanted to create some gossip, whether I wanted to do it on purpose or I just wanted to create some drama or to target that person specifically, whatever the motive is. I mean, we're not talking about that necessarily today, but the spread of it and how to stop it. So let's say, again, here's your example. I saw somebody, let's say I saw Tiffany I saw Tiffany playing in the dirt at recess. And if I wanted to target maybe spread a rumor about her, I would go over to Sarah and I'd say, hey, Sarah, guess what happened? I saw Tiffany eating dirt at recess today. Was that true? No. But is she probably going to believe me or want to believe me? I would think so, because a lot of times when people are spreading rumors, they're doing it for drama or to target somebody or to hurt somebody's feelings. So Sarah gets that idea and she goes and tells Timmy. And Timmy passes it on, and now the whole class knows. Maybe the whole grade level knows. And meanwhile, Tiffany is feeling, isolated, sad, maybe frustrated that people are spreading rumors and false rumors at that. Another way rumors are spread is through written response. They might pass a note in class. They might pass a note, or maybe they would even text somebody. We've seen a lot of that with like cyberbullying, where I might say something about somebody via text or on an app or a game, and then it gets passed and passed and passed. So it's not just verbal, it's not just written, but can also be online, which is actually a really scary thing because you're not face to face with that person. So the one thing that I like to think about when I hear something about somebody else it has not to do with me, it's not my business, I think of two things. I think, one, is this something I need to know about or need to share? Is that helpful or is it hurtful? The second thing is, I think about, what does that person feel? If I were the person in that story, would I feel good about this being spread? Or would I probably be embarrassed or isolated in that situation? If I feel bad about either of those two responses, then it's not worth my time to share. Because ultimately, here's speaking from my experience, if you engage in contributing to the gossip, what's going to happen is you might feel good about yourself right then because I'm on the power side of things. I have the control of this information. But ultimately, what's going to happen, and what I've seen a lot of times, is that I may be on the power side of things now, but who's to say those people I've been talking to about this drama, about this gossip, aren't going to target me next time? Maybe they hear one little thing about me, or even they make it up out of nowhere. I'm going to be the target of the next one. It's going to happen eventually. So really, it's just a whole mess that we don't want to get involved in, because you may be on the power side and feeling good about yourself now, but you're hurting somebody else. And really, we shouldn't feel good about hurting somebody else. So those are just some tips of mine. Again, thinking, is it helpful or hurtful? And do I need to know about it? And the second one is, how would you feel if that were you? Okay, because sometimes it might get reversed and it might become you as the topic. All right, and then we don't want to encourage that with our friends. I know it can be hard because a lot of times gossip starts with a group of friends, with a group of people, and you want to be friends with them. Maybe you are friends with them. And it's hard to stand up against somebody who's doing something that's wrong. I totally understand that. But in the long run, you don't want to be friends with people who are doing that. Okay? Because ultimately they might come after you. Maybe you do something that they don't like, and now you're the target. It's really just not good friends to have. Okay, so a couple things we're going to be talking about is being a part of the gossip problem or part of the gossip solution. When you are confronted or given information that you don't either think is necessary to tell and it's harmful, or it's maybe not harmful, but it's a private piece of information. Maybe Tiffany told Sarah about a secret of hers in trust that she wouldn't share that. And then Sarah says, okay, I'm going to tell everybody. That would be considered spreading private information, being part of the gossip solution. So you can be part of the problem or part of the solution. And I think if you don't do anything, you're still part of that problem. Okay? People who, even if they hear it and they don't say anything, like, I don't like that, or please don't tell me that, or that's not a good thing to share, you're adding to the problem, because those people think it's okay to share still. If nobody's telling them, you know what, that's kind of hurtful, and I don't appreciate that, and I don't think that person deserves that, you're kind of telling that gossip person that, yeah, it's okay to share this gossip, whether I'm giving you positive attention or not. You're still kind of making it okay in a way. So if you have questions about that, let me know, because I want to build up these skills so that when you are confronted with these situations, you have the confidence to handle them. Okay, so instead of being part of the gossip problem and making it worse, you can be part of the gossip solution. Today, we're going to watch two separate videos. One of them is going to present a problem about a boy who has an issue with gossip. As you watch this first video, I want you to think about how you might handle this situation. Okay, so first video, what is the situation and how would you handle it personally? Okay, here we go.
About a week ago, these stories started going around school about me and this girl, Selena. People were saying that I liked her, as a girlfriend. I mean, she's a friend and everything, but everyone was making such a big deal about it. I think Ben just saw me talking to her and then kind of assumed the rest. Then he started spreading the gossip.
I saw Antonio talking to Selena. I bet he likes her.
I heard Antonio likes Selena.
I heard that Antonio likes Selena. He's liked her the whole year.
I was embarrassed because I felt like people were telling stories that weren't true. And I was really hurt that they were talking about me behind my back. Now I feel all weird around Selena. Like we can't even be friends anymore.
It doesn't sound like he's in a good spot at all. I'm sure that most of you, some of you can relate to a similar situation. You're kind of getting to that age where people see maybe you're talking to somebody else a lot and they start teasing you about maybe liking somebody. And maybe you do, but you just don't want that to be shared. If you find that it's hurtful to yourself, one thing that I like to do is reflect on why I think it's hurtful. Because maybe some people think they would feel good about them talking about them. But ultimately, you saw some of those conversations going on. It started off with Ben saying, oh, I think he likes her. And then later on, it was like, oh, he's liked her the whole year. And it was adding to that little, the first start, I guess. It just kind of builds and builds and builds. Kind of like the game of telephone. You pass it to one person and they might hear it clearly. And then when they pass it to the next person, they might not say it the same way. So even if he did tell Ben, like, oh, I like her, even as it gets passed, it might change the meaning of that. And ultimately, that's private and not respectful to him or her. And ultimately, thinking in the end, he felt uncomfortable by it because he says, well, I'm friends with her. But now I feel awkward because of all of this drama that's going on, all this gossip, that I feel like I can't even be friends with her. And she wasn't even part of the gossip problem. I want you to think about how you would feel in this situation. It seems like he's kind of isolated now. He's not friends with Selena, or he's not hanging out with Selena, talking to her as much. And he's also feeling a little bit weird about how Ben was handling that situation and how the other classmates were. I know I would feel uncomfortable as well. And it would take me to stop and really think about, why am I hurt by this? And what can I do to express my thoughts in a positive way? I also want you to think about why the gossip is wrong. It's not saying necessarily anything big. Not like, oh, they did all these things and he's been texting her all the time and blah, 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 blah. Not yet, at least. But why is it harmful to even share anything like that, or even spread even a little rumor or gossip like that? I would think because it's not respectful. Really, I mean, we shouldn't be getting our business into other people's business. If he wants to talk about it with Ben, maybe Ben can ask him about it rather than go and talk behind his back. I'm thinking that Ben probably did that because he's not hanging out with his friend as much, and maybe he's a little bit jealous. If I were his friend who's being talked about, Antonio, I would probably sit back and say, well, I could confront everybody and just say, it's not true. I could maybe go and have a private conversation with Ben and ask him why he did that. I could share a little bit about myself with him and about the rumor with him. But which one is going to bring about the most positive consequences versus the negative ones? And a lot of that takes some learning. some time through problems and gossip like that. Let's see. What do you think would happen if Antonio decided to start a mean rumor about Ben to get back at him? I'm just thinking about that spiral, that spider web I talked about, how one leads to the next, and then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think if he were to start a new rumor, start a new round of gossip, it would just escalate the problem even bigger. Because then now they have conflict with each other, because he's going to ultimately find out that Antonio started the rumor. And I don't think he wants to make it bigger. He wants to resolve the conflict. That's kind of like when somebody says something mean to you. If you do something mean back to them, it may feel good right away because I got revenge. But ultimately, you still have conflict with that person. And if you still have conflict with that person, later on, it's going to build and build and build. Because if I start a rumor about Ben gets mad at me, and maybe he starts a rumor about me again, and it continues, and maybe it even escalates further than that, whether it's straight verbal or maybe even a physical fight with them. So just thinking about that. What is my solution going to have positive consequences, or is it going to have negative consequences and add to the problem? I'm the victim of this gossip, but am I going to be part of the solution or the problem? Right? Because ultimately you can't. So let's see how Antonio solves this problem. And I want you to think, is that how I would have solved it? I know I shared a little bit about my ideas and I haven't been able to hear yours, but I want you to just reflect on that as we're watching that second part to his video.
I decided I had to do something. I thought about just walking away whenever anyone mentioned it, or having one of my friends tell people to stop, or telling the teacher. But I decided the best thing to do was confront Ben. You know, that story about me and Selena isn't true. And it's not really okay to tell personal stuff about people behind their backs. Besides, you could have just asked me about it to my face.
I felt pretty bad that I'd been gossiping about Antonio, and that he found out. I sort of have a problem with talking about other people. I mean, I kind of like to do it. I had to go around and tell people that I had just made up the story about Antonio and Selena. That was embarrassing. Now, if I want to say something about someone else, I ask myself, would I want other people to say that about me?
All right, one thing I do want to mention about this is he was thinking through all of his possible solutions, and some of you might be watching that like, okay, but what if he doesn't actually believe him? Which is totally valid, because if I come up to you and I just am trying to be assertive about how I feel and ask him to stop, sometimes kids won't stop, right? That's where the differentiation between a big problem and a small or medium-sized problem comes into play. So right now, it's kind of a small, medium problem. So he decided I can handle this on my own. But not all gossip is the same. This was a smaller problem. But let's say he's gossiping about maybe your family. Maybe he's spreading rumors about your family. Or maybe he's spreading rumors about something you did that was really harmful to somebody else. That can be a serious problem. And if you try to handle that on your own, it might work out. But I would just caution you to think, could this turn worse? Is somebody in danger based on this? And do I feel comfortable? You can listen to yourself, because if you pause and you reflect about it, a lot of times we can differentiate between, well, I know this person enough, so I know that if I confront them and I address them assertively and ask them to please stop, they'll stop. Whereas sometimes people won't stop, which happens a lot of times. It does happen. So I just want you to be thoughtful about that in this video, Ben was able to show empathy. He says, well, if I were in his place, I wouldn't want this to happen. But not all the time that's going to happen when you confront somebody. So before you do that, I want you to think about what are the possible consequences. If it's a big problem, maybe I can't handle this on my own. Maybe I need to go ask an adult for assistance. And if you're unsure, I would caution you to ask first. But again, you guys are growing older. You're going to have to kind of work through those as they come. My hope is that we're going to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. And my hope is that if you're a bystander or somebody who's not the target or not the instigator, but somebody who hears the gossip, my hope is that you would have enough courage and bravery to stand up for that person. Because a lot of times when you're the target of gossip, it is very hard to stand up for yourself. And they could really use some friends to help them through that and help eliminate the false statements, or even if they're true and they're personal. You don't need to share personal statements about other people. My end statement is, I just want you to think about empathy. This was our very first unit. We talked about it at the very beginning of the year, but we have talked about it ever since we did the second step lessons. Empathy is when you can understand what another person is feeling. We can use visual clues based on how their body language is. We can, we can step into their shoes. That if I hear gossip, okay, oh, so-and-so has a crush on so-and-so, and I can think, well, if I were that person, would I want to be talked about that way? And if you don't feel good about it, trust your instinct and say, I need to step in, because I know that it's really hard as a victim, as a person who's being targeted by gossip, to stand up for themselves in that. So that's about the last thing I'm going to leave you with today. Just remember that if a problem is very severe, or it repeats, so it's happening again and again and again, or if the gossip is about someone who's going to be in danger or who is in danger, please, 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 you should get help from an adult, a trusted adult. Okay. So if you have any questions about this, I'm super bummed we can't talk about this in class, because I think some of our best learning is when we have conversations about this. And I know that you probably all have experience with it. You're going to have experience with it, and I would have loved to talk about it. So if you have any questions or want to share anything with me, you can comment on here or message me. You know how to reach me. And if you have problems next year, I would be more than happy to listen to you. You can email me and all that stuff. So I'm bummed, but I am happy we started this conversation here so that you'll be equipped when and if that happens to you or somebody you know next year. So please make sure you're being thoughtful about the assignment that I'm posting with this. And I will see you next week for our second to last second step lesson. We're going to be talking about how to resist peer pressure, which is a difficult one as well. So I will see you next week. I hope you all are doing well. And yes, I will see you next week.